An evil and jealous uncle buried her alive because of her beauty. Then what his eyes saw next shocked the whole universe. Things are happening in the town of Umueke. Evil walks in the daylight and dwells among men. It is in this Umueke town I told you about an evil dead nurse who visited a hospital from a mortuary looking for new babies to birth. In this same Umueke, a beautiful girl on the eve of her traditional marriage with the prince was buried alive by her jealous uncle on the night of her wedding. Her only crime was because she was very beautiful and well-behaved, well-mannered. Her only crime was that she was the pride of her father and the whole community. He buried her alive, but what he saw with his eyes, the universe has never witnessed it. Don't move an inch. You have never had a chilling story before like this one. Welcome to Ideka African Folktales. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share to others. Adaugo was the pride of her family, the melody of the village. Her beauty was like sunrise after a long night. But one man's jealousy turned her glory into a grave. What happened next? The world could never explain. In the village of Umueke, where palm trees danced with the wind and the sun kissed the earth like an old friend, there lived a girl whose name made even the river whisper, Adaugo, meaning the daughter of the Igbo. She was given the name at birth because of the kind of beauty she radiated at birth. As she grew, she was not just beautiful, she was wondrously beautiful. The kind of beauty that stopped conversations mid-sentence, that made young men stammer and elders stroke their beads in silent admiration. Her eyes were like wells of honey, her skin like the early morning sun kissing red clay, and her laughter, it echoed like bells in a temple. Pure, rare, unforgettable. But it wasn't just her looks, she was well-mannered. The kind of girl who still greeted the elderly on both knees and fetched water for her neighbors without being asked. She helped her mother in the kitchen, at the market. She swept the compound before dawn. She sang as she walked and blessed everyone she passed. Her mother, Mama Ada, used to say, Adaugo, you are not just my daughter, you are my song. When you smile, my heart dances. Even the village 8th grade composed songs about her beauty and virtue. On the moonlight night, children dance in the village square, clapping their hands to the rhythm. Ada with the golden skin, who walks like the queen of the river. Ada mara mma o, anyị siri gị nnọọ. Adaugo mara mma ka akwa, Adaugo mara mma ka akwa, arụ ya mara mma ka akwa. Ada mara mma, Ada mara mma ka akwa, Ada mara mma ka, Adaugo mara mma ka akwa, Ada mara mma ka akwa. And her father, Papa Ada, a humble but wise man, looked at her with a kind of pride that made other fathers sigh in envy. She was their only child, their only joy. But happiness, as it is often said in tales like this, attracts both blessings and jealousy. Behind every shining star is a shadow. And behind Adaugo's rising light stood a man whose heart had long turned to ashes, Okafor, her father's elder brother. Okafor was a respected man in the village, tall, proud, and sharp-tongued. But inside, he was wounded by bitterness, poisoned by comparison. He had 5 handsome sons from his first wife, but no daughter. And when the midwives confirmed yet another male child, he had flung the calabash of palm wine across the room and screamed, "What kind of curse is this? Why can't I father a beauty like Adaugo?" He eventually drove his wife away in anger, labeling her useless for not giving him a girl. In her place, he married a much younger woman, Mama, one of his many concubines. She was soft-spoken and heavily pregnant with twins. To the outside world, Okafor smiled and played the role of doting uncle to Adaugo, but in his heart, a storm brewed. Everywhere he went, people whispered about Adaugo. "She's even more beautiful than the queen of Ndinkelion. Na nwata makata." They say her bride price will be higher than 20 cows. No wonder her suitor is the prince from Agreli. These praises were salt on an open wound. It pained and peppered Okafor. He often stared at her with eyes that smiled, or hands that clenched. Why should Obinna, my younger brother, have the kind of daughter kings fight for, when all I have are loud, stubborn boys? And so hatred took root. Not hatred for what she had done, but for who she was. The drums had already started sounding from the hilltop shrine. The next Eke market was to be the day of Adaugo's traditional marriage. The day her marriage with the prince would be sealed. Villagers swept their compounds, and wine flowed like rivers. Even strangers from far-off communities came just to catch a glimpse of the girl in Umueke whose names had become a melody. Her suitor, Prince Obidike, was not just royalty. He was a warrior. He was tall and handsome, heir to the throne of Aguleri Kingdom. It was whispered that he had rejected 10 maidens before declaring that only Adaugo is worthy of the lion's throne. And that night, Adaugo sat beside her mother, pounding yam with laughter and humming a love song. Her father returned home with a big smile, his raffia bag filled with gifts from well-wishers. It was supposed to be the happiest night of her life. But evil, like a thief, was waiting at the door. Just after dinner, Uncle Okafor arrived, wearing a broad smile and carrying a walking stick. He greeted everyone with sweet words and jokes. Then, pulling Adaugo aside gently, he said, "Mom, your father asked me to fetch firewood from the sacred grove for tomorrow's cooking. He said you should follow me quickly before the moon goes down." Adaugo looked confused. Her mother hesitated. She was not comfortable with Okafor's whispers with her daughter. But she had no choice. She was taught never to question an elder, especially as it concerned Adaugo's father's elder brother. Adaugo did not go back to the kitchen to her mother or told anyone where she was going. In the sincerity of her heart, she was safe in the hand of her doting uncle, Okafor. So she tied her wrapper tighter, took her lantern, and followed him barefoot into the forest. She didn't know that each step was leading her closer to betrayal. She didn't know that the firewood was just a lie, that the man walking in front of her had already dug a shallow grave, deep within the groove where no birds sang. She walked in trust, he walked in envy. and the gods watched, silent but not blind. The path into the forest was narrow and silent. Not even crickets chirped. The air hung heavy, like it knew something terrible was about to happen. Adaugo walked behind her uncle, her lantern flickering softly, casting shadows that danced on the trees. She clutches her wrapper tightly, her heart thumping with unease. Uncle, are we almost there? Yes, child, just a few more steps, he said, voice calm but eyes dark with intent. They reached a small clearing deep inside the sacred grove, a place where villagers feared to walk at night. No one came here unless they sought to make sacrifice or tithe saints. There, hidden beneath palm fronds and disturbed soil, was a shallow grave already dug. Adaugo's breath caught in her throat. Her instincts screamed, but before she could turn, his hand struck her hard across the face. The lantern chattered. Uncle! She screamed. Please, what have I done? He said nothing, only muttered like a madman. You shouldn't have been born. You should not have been seen. He shoved her down. She fought, scratched, screamed, but the forest swallowed her cries. As the soil covered her, she raised her hands, trembling, pleading. Her last words echoed with pain. Uncle, what have I done to you? God! God! Somebody help me! He pressed the final handfuls of earth. Her hands remained raised above the ground like a statue of silent sorrow. And that night it rained. Not gently, but violently, like the heavens wept for her. And also something strange happened. Lightning struck the grove, and the earth began to tremble. Far from the forest in Okafor's compound, thunder roared overhead as Nwama, his pregnant wife, screamed into the night. Her labor came early and fierce. Meanwhile, Okafor was not at home. He was in his brother's house trying to pacify him and his wife. Their eyes knew no sleep that night, worried about their daughter's whereabouts. Okafor had lied that after he left Adaugo that night, that he sensed the prince, her suitor, visited and she escorted them. Perhaps the sudden heavy downpour didn't let her return, Okafor suggested, but they knew the prince does not visit at night. The prince will not come without coming to greet them. But they all waited and invoked the morning with their hands, because that night there was no sleep. And even the nights became longer. The morning refused to come. In Okafor's house, the midwives rushed in, faces pale with fear. Something was wrong. The air was thick. The candles flickered. It is not yet time, Mama. One of the midwives cried, and the Nwama cried too. What is happening to me? And just before the first cock crowed, she gave birth to twin girls. But gasps filled the room. Both babies came out alive. They looked so beautiful. Some said Adaugo has been replicated, but this time as a twin. But something was horrible about the new girls. their tiny arms lifted high, as if reaching for something invisible, up, as if someone has given them punishment, and they cried non-stop. The midwives tried to lower their hands, but the babies screamed in agony. Their shoulders nearly dislocated. Their arms will not drop. Their tiny fingers coiled, frozen towards the sky, just like Adaugo's buried arms. The midwives looked at each other, then whispered behind trembling lips, "This is not natural. This is not childbirth. This is a curse." And Mama wept. "What have I brought into this world?" Okafor stormed in, his wrapper soaked from the rain. When he saw the twins, his face turned white. No, it can't be. But it was. Adaugo's spirit had not gone quietly. She had left a sign. And suddenly again, one man's hands raised up to the sky and refused to come down. The midwives fled. Okafor's compound was now filled with cries, whispers, and shadows. It was around 5 a.m. a mini crowd began to form in his compound. Those who heard the heart-breaking cries. Suddenly again, Okafor's sons, one and after another, their hands began to raise to the sky and stiff, and there were more cries. In confusion, Okafor stormed out, heart pounding, his hands shaking with guilt and fear. I need to think. I need air. I need answer. He stammered, talking to no one. He ran through the rain to the home of BeauʻRIED, one of his concubines who had 3 daughters for him out of wedlock. When he arrived, he met another chaos. BῡRIED was kneeling on the floor, wailing, her wrapper soaked in tears. Her daughters, aged 4, 6, and 8, sat in a line, their arms lifted, trembling, stuck in the air, stiff, as if saluting an invisible judge. "Papa, help us! Our hands won't come down, help us!" The girls cried as they saw Okafor walked in. He reached out to touch them, and as his hand neared, the girls began to scream louder and louder until he stumbled back, terrified. BῡRIED cried, "What have you done? What evil have you brought upon us?" The curse was spreading, and it was female children, and every child who came from the groins of Okafor, who carried the sign, all of them connected. Word soon reached the village square. Mothers began checking their daughters and their sons. Some were fine, others were not. Okafor was really a public cock, a community he-goat. He had almost laid with the half of the women in Umueke, who would refuse Okafor. He was so handsome that in his youthful days, maidens fought over him. So girls, children, and women all over Umueke, who had one connection or the other with Okafor, began waking up with their arms frozen in the air, tears in their eyes, mouths too small to describe the unseen pain. And Okafor knew why. But he didn't talk. He didn't need a priest or diviner. He knew what was smelling. In his mind, he thought, "This is Adaugo's doing." He whispered to himself, trembling, "She wasn't buried. She was planted, and now she's rising." Some youths were sent to Agureli kingdom very early in the morning of the night Adaugo disappeared. But the prince said he never visited Umueke that night. The search for Adaugo was declared in every clan, and rewards for anyone who could give a link to her whereabouts. Adaugo's father, Obinna, was not a man of many words. But the day his daughter disappeared, his voice became a river of sorrow. He stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Every morning with blistered feet and aching heart, he would wander the forest, calling out, Adaugo, Adam, answer me, please. Zanoma Adabiano, Adabia, Adaugo, Bia. He tore through brambles with bare hands. His arms were scratched, his clothes soaked in blood and mud, but still he searched. The villagers tried to stop him. Let the gods handle this, Papa Ada, they pleaded. But how does a father stop looking for his only daughter? On the third night, rain fell like a judgment. Thunder roared. The trees were as if mourning. Papa Adaugo, drenched and shivering, fell to his knees under an ancient tree in the sacred grove. Something in his heart told him she's here. He dropped to the wet ground and whispered through a broken saw, Adaugo, my daughter, forgive me. I couldn't protect you. I failed you. Adabiano, Ada. Lightning split the sky as if the sky was weeping with him. Then silence. He dropped dead. He died of heartbreak, of heartache, of heart attack. The next morning they found him lifeless, coiled at the base of the tree, the very place her spirit hovered. A tear dried on his cheek. The nights that followed the disappearance of Adaugo, Okafor could not sleep. His concubines abandoned him and left the cursed children with him. His sons, once proud and strong, now mutter to themselves and claw at shadows. But it was his dreams that tormented him most. In the darkest hours of the night, Adaugo began to appear. She wore white, her skin glowing like moonlight, her feet untouched by the ground. Behind her stood children singing. She stood by a river that flowed upward. She stared at him not in anger, but in sorrow. Then she whispered, they buried me, but they planted justice. He woke up gasping. His bedroom was filled with flies. His farm withered overnight. His name was cursed in secret tones across Umueke. 12 years have come and gone since Adaugo's sudden disappearance and the deaths of her father and mother out of heartbreak. But Okafor was still alive, moving. In his house, silence reigned. His twin daughters, now grown, still live with their arms forever raised. They still look very beautiful. But what is beauty in a standing statue? They will not even feed themselves by themselves. They only sat idle in front of the house at the mercies of the house flies, which perch all over their wounded bodies, including in their eyes. Okafor's sons had wandered into the forest 12 years ago and never returned. His name was never spoken again at the family meetings because he had stopped attending any out of shame and fear. Why would he? Some men had lost their marriages because of him when they discovered he sneaked into their matrimonial beds with their wives. Okafor was now a chaff. Only a whisper remained. He had his conscience very loud. He was the one who buried Beauty. And the innocent girls, women, men, suffer for years in Umueke because of the evil and jealousy of one man. Dear viewers, Wait for the part 2 of this story, The Return of Adaugo. But can you repeat after me? May I or my children never suffer for the evil of another person. And as you reflect on Adaugo's story, ask yourself, what injustice have you buried that still breathes? What beauty have you silenced out of fear or envy? And if the earth could speak, what will it return to us? Thank you for watching till the end. Please remember to like and comment. Bye. Follow us if you would like to see the part 2.